You're listening to the Rise to Thrive podcast with your hosts, Linda Tate and Amelia Travis. Rise to Thrive is your life resource for manifestation, wellness, and abundance. Tune in weekly so you can thrive daily. This week's episode coming at you.
Good day, Rise to Thrivers. These are your hosts, Linda Tate, Amelia Travis, for today's episode, Don't Know How, talking about manifestation and how trusting the process, not knowing how you're going to get there, but your ideas around what it could look like when you do get there can be so powerful. We're excited to share our keys to manifestation with you.
Yeah!
Take it away.
So I think this show's really exciting because I believe that one of the biggest obstacles to successful manifestation is the fact that we're simply obsessed with thinking that we have to know how something's going to happen. And if you think about like what we're taught, we're conditioned into this, right? It's like, if you want to accomplish something, so, we think a lot about like goal setting, and manifestation is not the same thing as goal setting. Goals might be like related to your manifestation process, either before or during, but they're really two different things, because setting goals is thinking about what you desire and then figuring out how you're going to get there by reverse engineering the desire.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do to get there? That's the question. But manifestation is totally different animal, and manifestation doesn't care how you're going to get there. Manifestation just wants to know who you are and how you feel when you get there, right? So let that sink in for just a minute. Who you are and how you feel when you achieve the desire or when you receive the desire. Right? So like, what's the difference?
I think the big difference is the feelings.
The big difference is totally the feelings, because when we're goal setting or when we're thinking about the how, the most common feelings, or maybe not most common, but some feelings that we're commonly experiencing as we think about how, the next thought is, well, I don't know how.
I don't know how, and I don't know how because I don't have it.
Right. And so then it's like immediately like negative thought, anxiety provoking thought of scarcity, and then a sense of just general inadequacy because
I'll never have it.
You don't have it. You never have it. You don't know how you're going to get it. Right. And so coming into any sort of goal setting or manifestation from that place is self-defeating, because part of receiving is being part of successfully receiving through manifestation is being able to receive something and to get into the energy of receiving it as though it was something as simple as receiving a cup of tea. Like, Linda, would you like a cup of tea?
Yes.
Yes, you would. And it's very easy for you to say, yes, here, let me give you a cup of tea.
Thank you for my cup of tea.
You're welcome. And she was able to say yes to that and receive that so easily, right? It's just like, of course. If, you said something to me the other day, Linda, where you were like, we were talking about manifestation, and you said it's no different to say to someone, oh yeah, I just found a great room in a 4-bedroom house. It's shared with 4 other roommates. The rent's a couple $100s a month, and they allow dogs. Like, isn't that awesome? Right? There's literally no difference between saying that and saying, I found a 5-bedroom, 4,000 square foot house that has a pool, and it's like way below market value. And it just so happens that we can swing it with like our incomes. Like, we're going to be able to get the mortgage.
Isn't that funny too, that it's like the effortlessness of either of those, like the energy of like believing it's possible.
Well, and so that's, yeah, and that's like, I think exactly what the light bulb that went off for me when you said that was like, oh, that actually is no different. It's all about the framework of what you believe, how easy you believe it is to receive that thing. So when I hear you give the example of like, 4 roommates in a house and like it's allows pets and it's like a couple $100 a month, I'm just like,
duh,
yeah,
that's
like
it's
duh,
everywhere.
like no kidding, like that's just out there. Well, there's just as many opportunities for mind-blowing like abundance and receiving that are in alignment with your highest desires, right? You have to think that there is somebody out there who right now, that example of the house with the roommates and the couple $100 a month rent, that feels the same way to someone as does the $1 million home that works into my income for me right now, right? So like flipping it on its head, like there's the ability to be in the space of scarcity or lack or not knowing like how you're going to get that thing and feeling like maybe it's not available. And then just as many opportunities to be in the space of it being available and being able to receive.
Yeah, there is something too about self-worth in this, because if you don't believe it's possible, so if you're like, okay, it's the same thing, like one room in this 4-bedroom house for a couple $100, that's possible. 5-bedroom house, like on the beach, $1 million, there's no way I could have that. It's like, whether it's conscious or on such a deep subtle level,
it's about deserving.
It's about like if you deserve it, but even if you even believe that exists, or even if you believe, because you could just be like, that's on your vision board, right? Like using that as an example, but like deep down somewhere, you're like, I could never have that.
So then
it's like an opposing belief system.
Right. And so then if you're that person who is telling me I could never have that, then my next question would be, what kind of person can?
Well, right? Any person can.
Who's the person that can?
It's just the person that's just exactly like you, but that actually believes it.
Exactly.
I'm right? saying the
and
same thing.
So I know. And so if we were working with each other on this like limiting belief, then, it would be us asking each other, well, tell me about the person who lives in that house. Then what are they like? What's their life like? And like to make this more tangible to you, one of the things I've been asking myself lately, I set an income goal for this year, $500,000 for my business. I want my business to make $500,000 this year. And so one of the questions that I ask myself is, well, what does the $500,000 earner version of me act like? What does she do? How does she respond to certain things in her business? What's her workflow like? What's her daily schedule like? What does she do when she wakes up in the morning? How does she feel when she goes into her office that day? What is her expectation of receiving any certain dollar amount and how that transaction feels for her, right? And so as we talk about like what are the actual keys to manifestation, like we're going to talk a lot about vision and about feeling, right? But before you can get to those, like one of the biggest questions first is like with manifestation, like it needs to be something that you actually desire. And this is where things can get a little tricky because, you talked about worthiness a second ago, but there can also be subconscious fears and resistance and blockage that's actually acting in opposition to desire for something, right? Mm-hmm. So like, for example, I might have this desire where I'm like, I want my business to earn $500,000 this year. But I may also carry a subconscious belief that significant financial prosperity or abundance might go hand in hand with relationships falling apart, right? Which I've shared a little bit about me recently realizing that I have that limiting belief. And so there's two kind of opposing energies working in against each other, really just in even the desire.
We have a tug of war.
A tug of war. And desire is kind of like, it's like square one, I think, for whatever you want to manifest. Like,
and aligned desire. Like, I think aligned desire is really powerful and important because, if you have a desire out of alignment, it's going to lead you on a path you maybe don't want to go on.
So tell us what alignment means for you.
Alignment to me is like, based on your values and your belief system, it's something you want to call in because it fits kind of that mold or those pillars of your makeup.
So it's like checking in with core values.
Yeah, checking in with core values. And it feels good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like also putting yourself in what that would feel like, and I know we're going to go through the steps, but I really think this is important at the desire point to consider, like, okay, like, I'm making the $500,000 a year in my business. Like, what is that going to feel like? And is that a place that I want to go? And you can't fully know the answer to that until you're in it. But why I say this is because I think it can be easy to call in things that you might not want.
Right. Well, and I think like finding a why within your desire and making sure that that's clear is important.
Like purpose-driven desire.
Yeah. So I would say like, to check if something is purpose-driven, to check if it aligns with your purpose, I have my 5 criteria that I always go to, which is you enjoy it, others benefit from it, it sustains you, emotional, mental, spiritual, financial. You feel guided and protected when you're in the practice of doing whatever this thing is, and then you experience gratitude and growth. Mm-hmm. And those are kind of like my 5 check-ins for like, is this purpose-driven? Is this in alignment? And like, I think even with my example that we're using about 500,000 a year, it's like, well, why is it just a number? And is that an ego-based number? Or like, what does that mean for me? Well, it means that I would be able to build a team where my company is supporting and sustaining not just me and my family, but a few other people as well. And knowing the community that I have of driven, beautiful, intelligent women who would love to be in service to humanity and to other people, through what we offer, through education and through personal development, like that would be awesome to be able to employ some people. So that's part of the why. Part of the why is being able to provide stability and security for my family that comes from a place of flexibility. So being able to have plenty of time to be with them, and also to be able to have like a stable home life, right? Part of the why is that we can create more impact when we have more income. So like being when we talk about voting with your dollar, the more dollars you have, the more impact your vote has. Mm-hmm. Like that's a real thing. So there's a lot of why that informs my desire, and I'm not going to sit here and say like every single day I'm coming from a purely altruistic, like, benevolent place of that desire.
Well, I think, could you shed on those parts of your why too?
Totally, yeah. I mean, the other parts of my why, and I think that's like equally important.
It is.
I would love to be able to, and I look forward to being able to shamelessly and regularly practice indulgent self-care. And like I say indulgent on purpose because I want it to be relatively luxurious. I want to get facials with eminent skincare. I want to be able to get the hot stone massage without thinking about the price tag. I want to be able to treat my best friend to that. 5 of my best friends to it because it's a Thursday and they deserve it, right? Like
Thursday.
Like I would love to be able to shop at Anthropologie and Free People and buy clothes that are beautiful, that make me feel happy when I'm wearing them, and not have guilt or compunction about, the price tag. Like, I would, on the kind of darker side of it where it's like, I'm not always altruistic and like, what are kind of I definitely have my need-based and my like scarcity mindset things around wanting the money. But I think they're like less of it. Like I can't even think of a way that's just like the days where you're like, I need to do it because I need to look like so-and-so. Like this girl's making that much. And like, I'm as good as her or better than her.
Comparison game.
Comparison, competition, trying to hold yourself up against somebody else's timeline, your cousin who finished medical school and like they just bought the new Audi and like that's your Audi, you've been wanting that one for years. It's on your vision board.
The energy not to put into your desires.
Yeah, so it's like it's coming from, like you said, a place of aligned desire. And I think extrapolating that desire into like all of the whys behind it and like what, you know, going back to like who are you going to be in that desire and how does that person impact the world around them? How do they show up for themselves? Even just the why of like not being worried. Like, can you just imagine, like, on a day to day basis, feeling like I'm safe, I'm secure, there's plenty of money in my bank account, there's going to be plenty more coming in tomorrow? Like,
do you think that feeling's accessible to you right now?
it's right now in this moment. I'm in it because I just finished a wealth expanded workshop with Linda Tate. You guys haven't heard. Linda does some pretty bomb ass financial manifestation and mindset work, and I'm feeling the vibes, man, after a workshop today.
But this does, like, I think the root of this is what you believe is possible. And I've learned this through some of the manifestation work that I've done. And you know me, I have some large, lofty goals, and
I gotta tell them. Hold on, I gotta tell you guys. So I was leading a visualization exercise at one of our master trainings, our leadership retreats, and we go around after we write everything down. We were speaking about, it's like future self journaling is a way you could put it.
It's and she makes you read it.
I make you read it. It's required.
If you want to.
It's required.
It's required if you want to.
Yeah. And so Linda was reading, and just one line stuck out at me, and I'll never forget it. And she said, with total sincerity and the biggest, sweetest smile on her face, she said, "It feels so good to be a billionaire." And I was just like, fuck yeah, Linda. Fuck yeah. It was so cool because as she was reading this beautiful, powerful visualization, this was just one line within it. That wasn't the whole thing. You had to have the context a little bit. But as she said it from such a place of joy and not just even possibility, but because it was present tense, like it felt just like, yeah. And I mean, I feel like that's how Richard Branson feels, right? Like he's hanging out Necker Island. He's sitting there with his tiki torches and his palm trees, and he's like crawling in his hammock, and he's hanging out with his friend Bill, because it's like they're like me and Linda, but it's like Bill and Richard, you know what I mean? Bill and Ted. No, wait, there's not a Richard in that. Anyway, they're hanging out, and Richard's just like thinking to himself, and he just happens to say it out loud, and he's like, "It feels so good to be a billionaire," And you're like, can't get mad at the guy because it's Richard Branson. He does a lot of good in the world, and he's really smart, and like he is a billionaire. It probably does feel really good, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in that moment, right, like you get into such a deep subconscious place of like what is possible. And for me, maybe a game is the wrong word, but I have had this approach where I'm like, well, if infinity is possible, like that seems like a big goal. Let's do it. And it is. And I will report back live when that day comes.
Very soon.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll still be here podcasting.
I got distracted, but why I brought that up is my big goals is because that feels why I said we'll see. Like that was the doubt. I caught myself in it. And why I say we'll see is because like that timeline feels not at all impossible, but it feels far out. And why this is crucial to the manifestation, and I've lately realized, is that, if I think that could be possible, say in 10 years, but my goal of focus is that right now, and like I'm doing like 1 year work, there's a disconnect, like the timeline doesn't match. And so like, what's the inspired action that's possible for me over the next 6 to 12 months or 9 months, if you want to meet at the midway? And that's been a huge shift because it makes something that feels very much possible, relevant, and out there come way back into like, and what does this year's goals look like? And I believe in that shift is a lot of transformation because, you know, your inspired action, if it comes to a quarterly basis or a monthly basis or a semi-annual basis, it feels a lot more in the now. And so kind of chunking your goals into meet a timeline that is relevant in a nearer term outlook, that can be powerful. And if you ask me, could you be a billionaire in a year? I would say no. And like that feels impossible to me. So why would I have that as my goal focus?
So yeah, so what I hear you saying is like, when we say you don't have to know how, and this is important, that doesn't mean you don't have to do anything. Okay, so let's clear that up right now at the relative beginning. Just because we're saying you don't have to know how, that doesn't mean you wish for it and then you sit back on your cute little hiney and don't do anything or take any action or move towards the desire in any way.
Which, though, I'm laughing because what a fun experiment if someone's like, yeah, I don't need to take any action. But I would actually counter to say that could it be possible to have like the full faith belief that I could be, say, a billionaire without doing anything within the next year?
Sure.
If I fully, in my heart of hearts, believe that was possible.
That would be a fun experiment. And I mean, my answer to that is I have zero doubt that by some strange stroke of fate, but here's the thing, it would probably be something kind of weird, like you get like a hit and run from an oil tycoon who happens to be worth 70 billion, and because of the way things go down in the lawsuit, like maybe it's like not even, I don't even know, like he just decides to settle out of court for $1 billion. You know what I mean?
But I don't, like the key here for me is like, I don't believe that's possible. So
right.
It won't happen.
Right, precisely. Yeah. So,
but if any of our listeners want to do the test.
Yeah, well, and so that's, so the belief aspect of it comes in, I think, when we talk about both feeling and receiving, but I do think it's foundational. So I think it's kind of, in the desire, like you have to believe that that desire would be possible. So like for me with the $500,000 goal, like I fully believe that it's possible. I do not know how, in the sense that like when I mapped out my annual business plan, even though I feel like I was being relatively ambitious and optimistic, it came out around 340,000. And so it's like, well, where's this other $160,000 coming from? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know the how, but I fully believe that it's possible. It is aligned desire for me at this juncture. And so then it's like moving to the next step of, well, then what does that look like? Right? What would that look like to accomplish it, to achieve it, to receive it? And for me, getting into the vision aspect of it beyond desire is like so fun, because it's so fun. It's so fun. It's so easy, but mostly just so fun. It's like I get to sit and like have this really beautiful imagination or daydream or meditation experience of like, wow, what does that look like, right? So whatever the thing is that you're thinking about manifesting, it's allowing yourself to go inward and, you know, time travel on, as Linda puts it, on your magic carpet, like into the future self, and just really start noticing. Like you can start by greeting yourself in a mirror maybe, and like looking at your face and just noticing, like, how does your face look different? Like, are the stress lines gone? Like, does your face, your whole countenance just seems more relaxed? Like you're glowing, right? Maybe your hair looks really good. My hair looks really good in mine. And then going and zooming out a little bit from there, and then noticing like, oh, what are you wearing? Like, what does the version of you who has realized this desire, maybe she's wearing a swimsuit because maybe she's laying on a beach at the resort where she's like celebrating whatever the thing is that she accomplished. Or maybe she's laying on a beach that's completely deserted in the middle of nowhere because her, this manifestation is to be traveling the world to the most remote places by yourself. So it's like zooming the vision out, like, what do you see in yourself? what do you see in your immediate surroundings? Like getting super clear on like, what does it look like? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you taste? What do you see? What do you feel? What's the sensations on your skin and in your body? Like going from everything from like the external sensations of like, you know, the weather and the sun on your skin and all of that, but also the internal sensations. What does it feel like when you literally cannot prevent your cheeks from smiling because you're just so freaking blown away by the blessings that you're receiving, and you just feel like handpicked by the universe, by God, that you're like, I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. Like,
right now.
Wow. Like, yeah, that feeling. And so when you vision, and vision's going to segue right into feeling, but it's like taking yourself in your mind's eye and like getting so clear on the details. And so you guys might be like, wait, but you said we don't have to know how. I'm not telling you the details of how you got to this place. I'm saying the vision of the details of what it's like to be in it.
Yeah, and I think this is a important distinction where when you're getting into the details and the vision, there can be, I don't know, I've had this feeling of like, well, what if I get it wrong? Or like, what if I make it too good? And it's like, just trust that in this part of the vision that it's going to be like that good or great or better. Like it's always going to be better.
This or better.
Yeah, this or better. And like the this or better, that's been like such a transformational, like releasing and trusting process, because I know without a shadow of a doubt, like anything that I'm doing or calling into my life will be that or better. I 100% know that. 100% every single time. It's not going to look like what I thought ever.
Never does.
It never does, but it's going to be that or better.
Yeah.
And it's always better. Actually, every single time.
Yeah. We think we know what's best for us, and we think we know like what we want. And I think we sometimes with some of the smaller stuff, it can be like almost scary accurate, right? Like, you know, you were saying earlier that you were playing one of your little mental games where you were using the affirmation, I am radiant, and simply the desire to be radiant, the vision of yourself as radiant, the feeling of yourself as radiant, the affirmation of it inwardly. And she's like going around but like rarely have you been called.
I really could never tell you time I remembered.
It's not like people have been calling her radiant right and left, but as she's in this place of that's her internal affirmation, you were hearing it
like multiple times.
Frequently, right? Okay.
And every time it started becoming a joke, I just started laughing, and I was like, yeah, like, duh, I'm radiant. Like, but it was like, you know, I got to I'm picking, like, well, how do I want to feel today? I want to feel radiant. I'm feeling radiant, like the focus of radiance, and like literally getting that confirmation everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like, so vision and feeling are closely linked. Your vision, I think, informs and leads to the feeling of like, really, what will that experience feel like? And this may seem foreign. So one of the things that I find is really helpful is to connect with an experience of joy, like one of the most powerful experiences of joy that you've had in your life, and allow yourself to move into that experience of joy from a somatic perspective. So checking in with like in your body, what does that joy feel like? And for me, it feels like bubbles coming up from my stomach, almost like not nervous bubbles, but like excitement bubbles. And it feels like almost like expansion in my chest where like the laugh just comes up and out. It feels like that feeling like I just described of in the cheeks when like your cheeks hurt from smiling. And it feels like a little bit of like warmth or like almost like blood in my cheeks because like I'm just so excited, right? It feels like warmth in the heart center. It feels like being turned on, but like not in necessarily a sexual way, but in like if you take like if you take desire to the point of like really great flirtation, like, do you know how it feels like,
or
when you're
just even
flirting
like
with
the
someone?
buzz, like the buzz through your body of just like aliveness.
Yeah.
That's for me.
Yeah, could feel like awe and wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Like wonder, I think, is a really powerful one too.
Energized.
Yeah, and amazement, like the feeling of like just wow,
Mm-hmm.
the feeling of wow. So if you need to start somewhere, like start
Use
in the place
some of those,
wow, right? So you move into feeling, and
but also to touch on vision, I've noticed that like vision boardings are really hot this year. I've seen this maybe lots of years before, but this is like the first year that I feel like lots of vision board workshops, which can be really great. And I would say consider that sometimes in vision boarding, it's like, do you actually believe what you're putting on there is possible?
mm-hmm.
And so I say that because it's easy to slap on there all this random stuff that, like, say within the next year, you actually don't believe is possible.
Mm-hmm.
So like maybe try to condense like the timeline of the vision board, or maybe just like whatever that item is generates a feeling. So that's like spot on to the feeling work you're talking about. But really to like be a little bit more guarded in the visioning process and either connecting to the feeling or doing that gut check of like, is this actually possible to me?
Mm-hmm.
Can I share a vision board success story?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was 2017 and I did a really powerful vision board. I had, I think, 3 of my guy friends over after a conference that we had all been to, and we did vision boarding, and like the vibes were right, the music was bumping, and we do our vision boarding. And it was just such good, just so good. And I put all this stuff on there that I very much felt was possible. And it was like within 6 months of this vision board, I'd like gotten my first surfboard. I had like an all expense paid for ski trip. I had, what was the other one? Oh, my boyfriend moved in. But there's like lots of like lovey stuff on there. And, there was a little Tony Robbins stuff, and like I had done the coaching thing. But it was all this stuff that like I believed it was possible. It snapped in really quick. And when I look back and I'm like, gosh, like I hope all my vision boards can be that successful. And the key was I believed every single one of those things that I'm like greatest success rate of a vision board, but it was just that I believed it was possible.
Yeah.
And there was this like immediate kind of clicking in. And it reminds me of a different vision board story where when I was in college, I had picked these photos of Shivananda and they were like seared into my mind for my yoga teacher training. And 7 years later, that's where I'm doing my yoga teacher training.
So Shivananda, you guys, is the Shivananda lineage of yoga has ashrams, which are like kind of like monasteries, but for yoga. They're like education centers, retreat centers for yoga. And so in college, Linda had put a picture, not even knowing what Shivananda was.
I had no, it was just sort of like a pretty girl in all white doing yoga on the beach in the Bahamas. And I'm like, that's cool. And I knew about Ricky Williams, if anybody's a Dolphins fan, like he would sometimes go to that what I didn't even know what an ashram was, but he would go there. And I had this cutout, just like I would always tear that page out of the freaking Yoga Journal magazine.
That's so funny. And so anyway, the point of the story was like 2015, January, after Linda and I met in 2014, she asked where I did my 200-hour training. I said Shivananda. She still didn't necessarily know what that was. And then I was like, hey, I'm going back to do my 500-hour. If you want to do your 200-hour that same time, I'll be there. And when we got there to Shivananda, Bahamas, the yoga deck, which was where that photo was taken, she's like, OMG, this is what was on my vision board when I was like 20. And so this is what we're saying about you don't have to know the how. I mean, could she have known the how when she was 20 if she was looking into it? Sure, but that's not the point. Like,
no, and
the
it's
point
like
was how you wanted to feel. You wanted to feel as free and as like light and beautiful and content and serene as this woman in white doing yoga on this beach. You wanted to be
her.
You wanted to be her. You wanted to be in that space.
Like feeling like as I perceived that she felt, which I certainly did, and never could have known, like, could I have put those steps together of like, and how to get there over a 7-year course of time. Like, it was massive amounts of trust and releasing and just understanding that. And at the time, none of this was conscious, but that is what happened. So I went to the back burner. I went on with my life. And then when the right time came, like, that was then expressed.
Yeah. So, okay, get clear on an aligned desire, visualize it, find the vision for who you are when that desire is coming to fruition, feel the feelings, and then, like, I don't know, I'm going to go ahead and say, like, in that case, you
could.
Speaking it.
No, but there was some, because whether it's a conscious, what Amelia is about to say is declaration.
The suspense is killing you guys.
Declaration, like declaring, like, I'm going to, and
putting it on your vision board was like the declaration.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm like committed at that moment to, like, one day I will go here for my yoga teacher training, even if that's in my mind, that's a declaration.
Right. Yeah, true. The declaration does not have to be out loud.
But it's a real lot nicer if you can write it or say it.
Right. And so that goes to, like, the levels of subtlety in like matter and experience, right? So for me, there's like kind of three, and not just for me, but for everyone, there's 3 levels, if you will, of matter, of experience. And it's thought, word, and deed, right? And this is oversimplifying, but basically things first exist in your thoughts. So at the most subtle level, it's you having the desire and then ruminating in the thought of, like, what is this desire? And then of course the vision is in your thought, right? The feeling is in thought, but also in your body. So it's like bringing in the somatic experience of it. Then when you go to speak that out loud or write it down, you're actually taking it from subtle to slightly more gross, not gross like ooh, but gross like tangible. You're bringing it into a like form more because you're writing it down. Like when it goes from your hand to the pen to the page, like you're creating a certain level of permanence in that and bringing it into life. And it's like, you know, we talk about the power of word, the power of life and death is on the tongue. And like in the beginning, there was the word and the primordial vibration being Om. And like, there's all of this cross-cultural and cross-religious like truth about the power of words, right? And so when you declare, you are making an agreement basically with yourself, with your hotline, with the universe, with God. And if somebody else is listening, with that other person, or with your piece of paper, your journal, you're making an agreement, a declaration, and you're giving it some weight. You're giving it some power, some oomph behind it. Just get a little oomph in there.
You can do it, put your back into it.
You can do it, put your back into it, what she said. So the declaration, you know, it doesn't have to be public, but here's what I'm going to challenge you to do is like, go ahead and write it down first, because that usually feels like the least threatening. It's like you're not even saying it out loud, you're just writing it down. And then step 2 would be like, read it out loud to yourself or your cat or your dog or like the mirror or your plants, whatever. But read it out loud. And when you read it out loud, as much as possible, read it in present tense, read it holding the vision, read it holding the feeling, and just be really bold with it. Like no one's watching, no one's listening. And so speak it out. And then if that feels like okay and not the most terrifying thing ever, even if it does feel scary, I would challenge you to go further anyway. And it's like, speak it to a trusted friend. And that can be us. You guys can like voice memo us on Instagram and send us your manifestations.
I would love it. I would love
so
that.
fun. We would love that. Send them to @Rise to Thrive podcast. We want to hear them. But speak it to somebody that you trust, somebody that will hold it sacred, and most importantly, somebody who will hold the belief and the possibility and the vibration with you. Okay, because they are lending it power. Then it's not just your thoughts, but then it's their thoughts. So if you think of this as like, whoa, like the frequency just magnified because now you're thinking it and I'm thinking it, right? And I think of this as like, it's synergistic, like it's more than the sum of its parts, right? Like there's like, it's not just me. It's not like 1 + 1 = 2. It's like 1 + 1 = like 5,
27,
36, 100. So declaration first in your mind, then with your pen, then with your words, then shout it from the rooftops. I'm just kidding.
I declare.
Yeah. So declaration, setting the intention, speaking it out. Then what?
You got to take some action.
What are you going to do?
I mean, for me, like, this is funny, but if you go back to the college one, like, what I mean by take some action is I trusted that's, I'm going to do my yoga teacher training there. I didn't take action that day. It took me 7 years, right? But at some point between the first time I had that thought about going to Shivananda, which I didn't even know was Shivananda, I arrived at the actual place. You better believe there was some action. And so the action is whatever steps, and the action could actually even be trust, right? Mm-hmm. I got to tell you a funny story.
I love funny stories.
Okay. So I decided that I was going to do some kind of education around food. And I thought I'd be a nutritionist or naturopath. And it turned out neither were the course to go. And I decided to go to cooking school. And nobody was really on board with that besides myself.
By nobody, you mean?
Like the people that I wanted to be, like my dad.
Family, friends.
My mom.
Beloved ones.
They're just like, why would you do that? You can cook. Like, why would you do that? And anyway,
well, not just you can cook, like you can cook and you have a really great job with steady income.
Maybe that was why they were saying it.
Like, yeah.
Anyway, so that wasn't the point of the story. So I decide, like, I'm going to do this, and I kind of kept it a secret. And I'm like, well, I have some other moving parts. Like, I'm living in a different state. I have to get up there. What am I going to do?
Surprise.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, I need a place to live. From the moment that I decided that I'm going to make this decision, I visit and meet with a realtor. That would be action.
That's an action.
That's action. So I meet with the realtor. Now this is where like the magic, the God, the divinity, all these things come in. But the realtor happened to be in New Jersey. And he's like this surfer bro with mala bracelets, which isn't like a normal New Jersey realtor vibe. And so as soon as I see him, I'm laughing like, okay, this is so weird. And we go visit now our third apartment. The first two were not that great. The third one is like so under market. I walk in, it's this like gorgeous apartment, 3-bedroom. I had my brother and another roommate. My bedroom actually was going to have my own bathroom and this lovely bathtub, which I'm a bathtub nerd, and its own closet, like all the things, the balcony. But the key in this particular experience is I walk in and I, from head to toe, immediately lit up chills.
Oh, girl.
Yeah. And I just knew, and I started laughing like, okay. And I'm so pumped. I'm like, I'm stoked. And I just say to my brother, I'm like, all right, let's sign the lease. Now, the side note is I had not yet actually applied to the school I was going to go to. And I hadn't actually told anybody that I was going to go. Mm-hmm. And this is 2 months before the move's going to occur. Mm-hmm. And I, at the time, own my house. So I have to make
mortgage, full-time job. family.
So there was some action.
Romantic partner.
And
No big deal.
But the chills were my somatic confirmation, and I just knew like everything else was going to work out, and it did. And I won't continue the story; it already felt kind of long, but with that action was from the beginning of the desire, the trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I love that story, and I didn't think it was too long. I thought it was perfect, but like the
it was
action
about to be too long.
Is maybe, I mean, I don't know. I was into it. Were you guys into it? I was into it. The action can sometimes feel a little bit messy. Like I would say that's what I would categorize for me as messy action.
It was not like very calculated, like risk averse action.
And that's what to me messy action means a little bit. And so I'm not encouraging you to necessarily be like foolhardy or like take unnecessary risks, but I am encouraging you to invite an element of magical thinking into your life where, again, you don't have to know the how, but if you follow charm, if you follow the full body chills, I'm gonna just go ahead and say, like, they haven't led me wrong.
No, they'll never leave you
ever.
wrong.
Literally. To me, that's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And like you call that whatever you want to call it. If you don't like that particular term, you can call it
Angels.
The angels or the universe's hug, whatever you want to call it. It's like
unicorns.
Yeah, it's like or just intuition, right? But like I believe it really is. There's some sort of sixth sense, and it's saying go this way.
It's your whole body's internal guidance.
Yeah,
and
your nervous system is like ding 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 ding.
Like, all right. And like, you meet that random person that's gonna be, the next connection to whatever, and like you feel whatever bodily response you have. For me, it's the chills, and it's just that knowing of like it's gonna be all right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So your action, I think this is important, is that your action isn't the first thing that's happening. So this is where like manifestation and goal setting maybe diverge a little bit. Goal setting, I think, still has some of these elements, but I do think that creating concrete actions, like action steps, like as part of goal setting is more like,
that's it.
Okay, here's the things that we're going to do. And because we do these things, we're going to get where we want to go, right? The difference between that and what we're saying is you're taking action to show good faith to the universe, not because that action is necessarily going to get you where you're going. It's because momentum like leads to the magic. That's all.
Do something.
It's showing, it's do something.
Right.
Like that's all it really is. It's showing that you're willing to do something.
Do anything. I don't really care what you do, but do it.
Yeah. So, all right. So you're there. You're like 90% of the way there.
You signed the lease.
Yeah. And there's one more element.
The best part.
And we talked about this in the beginning as it relates to belief, but you got to be able to receive. You got to be able to receive what you desire and to allow it to come in. And the way, one of the keys, you want to share this?
Yeah, I mean, this is the very last step. So you've received.
Yeah.
And then you do the thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, appreciate, and appreciate to appreciate.
I think we have to move appreciate up to like right
zero.
Like zero, like step one. You have to say thank you
it's
first.
both. I think it's both.
It is both.
Yeah, or it could be at every step. But I mean, this, I would just say, so rooted, and I'm like a finance nerd, but like appreciation, increasing in value, appreciate to appreciate. Like when you're like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's like the instant magnifier or multiplier, like continue, thank you, let's keep growing and going.
Well, exactly. And I think if anyone listening struggles with either the aspects of vision or feeling, tune into appreciation, like just tap into thank you. What would it feel like to say thank you to your higher power or to yourself or to the people involved? Like, what is the gratitude that you would be experiencing? upon receipt of this thing, this experience, right? Because when we say thank you, I believe that when we actually get into the feeling of thank you in our minds and in our bodies, we're tapping into the most divine frequency that there is. I believe that gratitude and love are like, those are the vibrations, man, that you need to stay in. Yeah, it's so incredible. So like with receiving, what I want to say though is be so open to receiving. Like I would love for you to think about your manifestations like you ordered the thing on Amazon Prime, like it's coming. Maybe not Prime because Prime means it's coming in 2 days.
Like
you ordered it on the normal Amazon where you don't know if it's coming.
It'll be 0 to 14 days,
7 days, or maybe it's like coming international, so it's like 26 days. You don't know, but you know it's coming, right? And like, I don't know, if you have like trouble with your mail delivery service, then like maybe this isn't the greatest analogy for you, but it's like maybe it's kind of like having a baby too. That's a good analogy. Like
your family's coming for Christmas.
Like the baby's gonna come out eventually. Like you don't know the day, but like the baby's coming out. You know what I mean? It's not gonna stay in there forever. I don't know. That's the best analogy for. My point here is like when you're open to receiving, like Linda, you said the word trust, like trust this or something better is coming.
Yeah, that's been the upgrade for me. And this is something that I think most people can relate to, but what about when you're in it and you can like kind of feel you could have identified like one of these steps, one of these 7 steps, like, oh, I'm in this part of it, but it starts to feel slow, right? Like I think the whole Shivananda example was very unconscious for me, and yet it still followed these steps. But the point was, I didn't really
You didn't really?
I didn't realize I was trusting the process. But what I will say is that there's times now where I can feel myself deep in some kind of manifestation where I'm like, oh, I know what's happening. And it's so obvious. And I'm like, it's not going to be tomorrow, but just trust that it's this or better. And I'm trusting the process. Yeah. So if there's anybody that's put anything out there and you're like, oh, like this is taking forever, just trust that this or better is happening.
Yeah.
And you're in it.
I want to say too, though, like on the flip side of that, I mean, not really, it's actually confirming it. It's just a different perspective. So growing up, my family has a beach house on the Central Coast. I say my family, but it's my grandmother's. It didn't belong to my parents. And it was always my most favorite place in the middle of California, right on the beach. So beautiful. And so even as a child, I had this intention that I would someday move to Cayucas, to this place at the beach. And this was my intention, I would write and I would drink coffee and I would take long walks on the beach. And that was my whole intention. In my mind, this was something that was going to happen when I was like retirement age. That's just how I had always envisioned it. It was what I expected. I also had this kind of weird, I guess, block where I like thought like, well, you can't just up and move to the beach. Like people don't just do that. You can't just move to the beach. Like I have no idea why I thought that, by the way. You can just move to the beach, for the record.
Yeah, only if you believe you can.
Right. Well, so here's what happened. 2009, I had left the sugar baby lifestyle. I was in this place of transition. My dad was sick and dying, and was trying to figure out, where am I going? What am I doing with my life, right? Went to the family beach house in Cayucas and sat on the beach and had this really powerful meditation experience where I surrendered my life. And I was just like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how, but I just trust. Like, I just trust that it's whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Long story short, I also in that meditation swore off men. By the way, I was like, I'm going to be single for the next 5 years. I'm going to become the woman I'm created to be, et cetera, et cetera. 3 days later, I meet my husband, and that's a story for another podcast. But basically, I heard direct confirmation the night that I met him that like he's my person, and he happened to live at the beach at this place, right, where I'd always wanted to live. And like, what are the odds that I would meet this incredible man in the place that I most desired to live, like in my heart ever? And we decided, anyway, long story short, we hooked up. We started not even dating because it was like a distance romance. And after hanging out, talking, whatever, for 4 months or 4 weeks, long distance, he's like, why don't you move to the beach? Not move in with me, but like, why don't you just move to the beach? And I was like, you can't do that. You can't just move to the beach. And he's like, you totally can. Like, you just move here. You could stay with me until you find a place, get a job. Like, it's no different than living in Sacramento or North Carolina or Ohio or anywhere that you've been living. Like, you just do it. And I was like, oh, crazy, right?
Move to the beach.
So I moved to the beach, you guys. I moved to the beach, and so that was like taking the action, right? And when I took the action, I was only staying with him for like 4 or 5 days. I found a Craigslist listing, same thing, beautiful place, tiny little, so cute beach house, a block from the beach, full of plants, with another girl my age who was an artist, like totally under market. I could afford the rent. When I went in to talk with her, she's like, oh yeah, I know this person over here who's looking to hire a hostess for their restaurant. And then I'm actually leaving in a couple months. Like, do you want to take my job managing an art gallery? And I was like, what is happening right now? And so I said yes to all of those things. But like, the point is, like, I had this dream seed, right, of this desire to live not just at the beach, but at this very specific tiny little beach town of 3,000 people. And I thought that it wasn't coming until I was 60 or 65. And life threw me the curveball after a meditation of like truly just opening myself up to what was the highest good for me in my life at that time. That's what that meditation was. And within 1 month was delivered on a silver platter, this life at the beach with the man who I'm now beautifully, happily married to. We've been together for almost 10 years with a beautiful child, like a home, a job. Like, it was literally all just like, here you go. And I mean, I wasn't coming from that sort of good shit just falling into your lap all the time, like quite the opposite. So you don't have to know the how, is what we're telling you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. The holiest prayer, the holiest mantra, the most transformative words that you can add to your life each day. Thank you.
May I live in my highest expression. So for this week's book club, we want to introduce a book that you've heard us talk about before. And I think that Christy Whitman with Quantum Success, if you haven't been keeping up with the book club, here's your friendly reminder, does a really great job of laying this framework out. And I recommend checking it out if you haven't already. And we thank you for tuning in about our favorite manifestation tips and steps. We love you.
So fun. You guys, this was so fun. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we really want to hear what you're manifesting. Don't we?
Yeah. And I also want to know why.
Yeah. We want to know why. So could you please slide into our DMs at Rise to Thrive Podcast or at Lila, L-I-L-A, Life, L-I-F-E.co, or at Stoked_Yogi. Hit us up. We want to hear from you.
We your friends.
Yeah, we your friends. And please tell us, what's your desire? Why? Speak it out. Let us support you. We want to hear the success stories. If you have a crazy manifestation tale, send it on over. And if you dug this, if you're into it, subscribe, leave us a review, share it with your friends.
Your real
we
friends.
Could be friends.
On the weekends.
Switch and meet friends? I don't know. Anyway, this is fun. Love you guys. See you soon.
Tune in weekly to Thrive Daily.
That's right. See you next time.